So, welcome, yogis, to our third installment of the Tantra series. I'd like us to, today we'll begin with a different mantra called Gayatri Mantra. It's one of the most well-known and revered mantra practices. Some mantra practices are kind of kept under lock and key, and there's more of an initiatory process required to open the gate. Whereas Gayatri is considered in many ways to be a kind of boon or gift to humanity, to be taken in by Shakti's loving embrace. So Gayatri is ascribed, and I use the word scribe like, I'm pointing to that's what it is. However, we could think of that as the very embodiment, the essence of, the truth of. So Gayatri is the truth of the Divine Mother. So we haven't gotten into deity figures so much, but there's certainly a fair bit of that woven into Tantric methodology. And one of those aspects is the Divine Mother. So are also known as the kind of supreme Shakti is another word. That all encompassing miracle of existence, the miracle of all the nuanced intelligence that's woven into the creation. And there's not a single grain of sand that's not touched by the angelic grace of the Divine Mother. And so Gayatri is a way that we can hook into that principle, to pay homage, really. And the mantra itself is broken into 24 consonants. There's an initial lead-in that's just B sounds, so they have no literal meaning, just the meaning is the sound itself. But the mantra itself has 24 consonants, which is indicative of a couple things. Each one is ascribed to a kind of sub-goddess, if you will, some particular Shakti that manages a kind of part of the creation, like fierceness or compassion or some sort of quality like that. And there's other governing correlates that go along with each of these Shaktis as well, such as a color and an element. And one dimension of the Samkhya chart. So if you go back to Jeremy's, one of his first talks, he mentioned this system called Samkhya, which means to enumerate. And within Samkhya, he had this defining principle called Purush, or consciousness. And then there was this other construct over here. So consciousness is essentially formless, called Prakriti, or the nature or matter principle, the Divine Mother. And within Prakriti are 24 different components or aspects of how the creation is put together. You might think of it as the yogic periodical table, right? Creation is comprised of these 24 things in various degrees and ratios, and there's a few other variables in there as well. I won't go into each of the 24, but I will say that each of these 24 dimensions of how creation is rendered is accounted for within the Gayatri. So each consonant is a kind of eminent reflection of not only the particular element, but the embodied Shakti force that is the prime relationship to those forces. Okay. So all that's contained there, and I'll take us over there in just a moment here by a screen share. And we'll chant the mantra. We'll do call and response once, and then we'll do it together 3 times. Right. Here, part 2. And open play. We're going to be off here to the right as well. That part's not cooperating with the screen, but let's start with the translation. So, Om, let us meditate upon the wondrous spirit of the divine, creator, the earth, space, and the heavens, the kind of trinity that you find throughout various spiritual systems. There's correlates to other trinities within yoga here as well. O God, may our minds be inspired by the light of that supreme self, so our own divinity in here as well, and be filled with divine qualities. Okay, so we'll take this call response line by line, and we'll put it all together. So if you're not already muted, just do that. And again, we'll do a call response. Om Bhuram Bhuvah Swaha. Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Yo yo no ranchodaya. Yo yo no ranchodaya. Just chant it all together, all the way through. Om Bhuram Bhuvah Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Yo yo no ranchodaya. Om Bhuram Bhuvah Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Yo yo no ranchodaya. Om Bhuram Bhuvah Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Yo yo no ranchodaya. Transition. Jeremy.
There we go. Well, as we've been discussing over these sessions, is this this idea that, of course, all of creation is sacred, that all of it can be an access point to us realizing its inherent sacredness or realizing its inherent beauty. Like the mantra that we just did, we can evoke certain aspects of creation, either for them to be more present in our lives or as a vehicle or bridge to connect to them simply, to go beyond our narrow human scale state. And as Derik sort of alluded to, because the expression itself has, innumerable forms, of course, the face of the divine has innumerable faces that are expressing through this multiplicity of form. and they can have different characteristics. All of these subtle forces can be anything like, as we've discussed, something like the sunlight coming from the sun, or even the force of gravity, or the force of courage, the force of birth, preservation, destruction, abundance, wisdom, that all of these things are various embodiments of this divine reality, of this divine potential. And as Derik mentioned, they're often personified, particular archetypes or as specific deities. And there's this whole pantheon that's sometimes woven into practice or alluded to as creating a context for what it is that we're trying to invoke, what it is that we're trying to embody, what it is that we're trying to call upon. And while some would consider this broad range of deities an expression of polytheism, others would say, well, it's just the many faces of the one reality. Just like each one of us are many faces, many individual temporal expressions of that same infinite creative potential that's expressing through temporary form, temporary means. And these can be ways that we can honor these subtle forces, honor these characteristics, that we can move back into this place of reverence for all that exists, as opposed to thinking it's sort of me separate from the rest of the universe, trying to get by, trying to work it out, trying to, work individually, all on my own to solve my challenges, overcome my problems, and etc. And that there are so many different expressions, there's also this honoring that as individuals, we have unique characteristics that compose us. We have a unique set of experiences that define how we show up in the world, that sort of condition our view and our understanding when we look at the world. And because of that uniqueness, we may also have an affinity for certain aspects of creation. And it's to those that we can use to access the divine, or access the quote unquote ritual of practice, so that it's not standardized, it's not a set, it has to look this way. Your practice of getting from your place of, your present moment experience of separateness to the recognition that you're one with the totality doesn't have to look a specific way, that it is unique to the individual. And, not only is it dependent upon sort of your unique characteristics, but also your unique circumstances, where you are in life right now, what resonates most with you. And that was actually something I was thinking in the way that Derik had answered Hannah's question. In terms of what you take away, it'll be defined somewhat by what you most resonate with, what most calls you from these principles that we've been exploring over these sessions. And that'll be because that resonates with where you are now, that becomes an entry point, that becomes an access point. And so I would say whatever you gain from these 4 parts is, whatever you're most inclined to take away and continue, sustain, or integrate in terms of practice, it's resonating with you for a reason in this way at this time. So it can also be based on our stage of life, where we are in terms of our growth. And when we recognize that, not only is this vast universe full of many seen and unseen forces, that we can ultimately recognize that they all play an important role. Even the force of destruction or dissolution or death, from the level of, me thinking, oh, this is me, this temporary incarnation that has a personality and has a very limited time on the planet. I can think, well, death is the worst thing ever. Destruction is the worst thing ever. Or even the forms in which my senses of security are being taken away by our, world challenges currently. It could seem like the worst thing ever, and yet it's there for a reason. Of course, death or dissolution, decay or destruction creates space for new forms, new expression, that it's just part of the cycle. It's an inherent part of the cycle. And when we sort of zoom out from it being all about me, then it becomes a little easier to recognize that there is beauty in death. There is beauty in dissolution. Just like in the forest, in the decomposition of the forest, it births new life from it, and it necessarily must happen that way. And so we can start to see things from a broader perspective, and it's helpful if we continue to expand our vision so that we can step into this place of humility. There's very little I have control over. And even though I think this is the most important thing in the world, me or what I'm seeing or what I'm experiencing, there's actually 7.8 billion dramas playing out right now across the planet. And every one of those dramas seem like the most significant thing, the most important thing. But if we can start to broaden our perspective to recognize that there's something much bigger taking place beyond me, whether it's just on the planet, whether it's in the cosmos, much, much bigger, something that we haven't yet fully integrated into our awareness and into our actions and into our understanding that informs how we move through the world. And at some level, this is what the practice of Tantra is. How can I have this universal perspective as I move through this seemingly narrow frame of experience in my neighborhood and in my job and in my family and with my desires and my fears and all of that. So humility is one way that we can break out of this personal perspective, this human scale. And it's said that we need humility in order to recognize our full potential. Because if we don't honor that it's much bigger than us, then we don't realize that who I think I am is also a lot smaller than who I really am. That as long as I identify with these finite forms and these finite restrictions, I'll equally identify with the limitations that are inherent in those forms and restrictions. So by saying, I don't know, I want to know, I want to see a bigger reality. I know there's a bigger reality because we can't even explain how the universe is working entirely. We're slowly building our way out. And one of my favorite teachings, I heard it, I hear it emphasized in Tantra. It was sort of defined clearly from another teacher that I had studied with in the past, the importance in this approach to life or to practice is that we must necessarily have both devotion and wisdom. And the devotion doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be to the same thing, quote unquote. The devotion can be to a specific deity if that's, one's affinity or orientation. It can be to a cause. It can be to a philosophy. It can be to an ideal. It can be to the practice. It can be to embodying a certain quality that we bring to the world or cultivating it through practice. It can really be to anything that has us, that inspires us to advance, that inspires us to grow. If there's no devotion to something bigger than me, and I'm just devoted to me, then I'm also devoted to all of my self-perceived limitations. And so if I'm devoted to something else, whatever it is, something that propels me, something that inspires and motivates my action into the realm of growth, then this will be something that takes me forward. Even in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he talks about the idea of Shraddha or faith. And it's defined different ways based on the translation that you find in the Yoga Sutras. But one of the translations is that we must have faith to practice. As we've been talking about, this is considered a science, a different kind of science. It doesn't require external validation. But it's an inner exploration. There is some level of external validation also available, but that there's this, as Derik said, this internal science, this internal process that we're going through. And in this, when we have faith that the techniques work, or that a bigger truth is not only out there or in here or wherever, but that it's also accessible, that I can actually know it. If I don't believe that there's the possibility of awakening to a bigger reality, then I have no motivation to apply any techniques, to activate any level of willpower commitment to actually take action to move forward and discover the deeper reality. I'll just probably hang out here doing my best to stay comfortable, which isn't wrong, but I'll likely be trying to maintain my current state rather than to grow beyond it, including all the limitations that accompany and define my current state. So the wisdom that's meant to accompany this devotion is so that the devotion is intelligent. The wisdom means that if it's just devotion, for example, it could look like blind faith. I'll just accept that that's true. I'll just accept that that's true, and I don't know whether or not it is, and I'm putting no effort into necessarily exploring whether or not it is, but I'm just, having some level of blind faith in what I think is, what I think is true. But with wisdom or intelligence, we can also know that the methods that we're applying, the process that we're engaged in, are helpful, that they're actually in line with Dharma, whether it be my individual purpose, that they're in line with my greatest contribution that I'm here to make while I'm here in this form, or the Dharma of the whole, that there's this support and upholding of the greater harmony, the greater collective awakening, the greater movement toward the realization of this deeper truth, not just as an individual, but as a whole. And so devotion without wisdom, another thing that can show up is that our devotion or our actions relative to devotion can be unskillful. We might be very devoted to certain techniques, certain tools, certain practices, but they may not be the right ones. They may not be the ones that are helping us. They may not be the ones that are actually propelling us forward. So we may be very committed. I'm busy all day doing good things, but they're not the things that are actually helping me grow or transcend my limitations, for example. And if we just have wisdom alone without devotion, then we might know what we need to do, or have an intellectual understanding of this bigger reality, or even recognize, I see what my challenges are. I see what my limitations are. I know what tools and techniques to apply to move forward and to actually dissolve them, but I don't have the motivation. I'm not actually taking action. And so the devotion also ignites willpower, that we actually take action to move forward. There's a teaching that says we must, these are both qualities of what's sometimes considered the higher self, or the inner teacher, or higher intellect, the higher realm of mind, or buddhi, which is that at some level we have to know what to do. I have to know what's helpful, what can take me forward, but I also have to have the capacity to do what I know, to act in accordance with that knowledge, so that it matters, so that it becomes applied. And, in this context, devotion is the thing that ignites our will, and wisdom is the thing that ensures skill in the process. And so going back to this idea that Derik had spoken about, that there's no, in this perspective, all the forces are, all of the forms are. There's no distinct right and wrong in the way that we would think of it. But the lens that I like to use when I look at the world, it's like, okay, well, if I suspend the idea of right or wrong from one perspective, because I see how it can be limiting and how it can actually cut me off from the possibility of the things I don't understand, the possibility of the challenges, the possibility that are inherent within the obstacles, for example. I often use the lens, is it helpful or unhelpful? So not so much right or wrong, but is it helpful or unhelpful? Does it help me? Does it help others? Or is it not? Sometimes what we think is helpful might not actually be helpful. So, going back to this example of practice, I might be practicing diligently hours a day, but I might not be doing the things that are really supportive for me. Or I might be doing the things that were exactly what I needed 2 years ago, but I'm still doing the same things, and it's not exactly what I need today. So our relationship to this big picture, our relationship to the divine, our relationship to the the process or ritual of practice evolves over time because we evolve over time. Our understanding evolves over time. And so there's this opportunity to keep expanding, not just, oh, this is good and this works now, I'll just do this forever, but that we can also identify, when is it not working anymore? Or when would something else be more helpful, for example? And we talked a lot about the polarity of creation, whether it's Shiva and Shakti, or this idea of Kundalini, or unawake potential, unrealized potential, and then the full awake reality of our true essence, and bringing those together, Purusha and Prakriti, this idea of consciousness being that absolute principle, and Prakriti being the manifest world of changing form, or whether it's me, Atman, myself, the self that's occupying this temporary form, or Brahman, or lots of different words for comparing, or Paramatman, or this idea that there's a bigger reality, that the totality is expressing uniquely through an individual expression, but ultimately those things aren't separate. And sometimes there's this idea that what's happening in this dance of all these forces and of creation is the hiding and the revealing, that we get confused in thinking, oh, I am Jeremy Wolf, and that's the extent of me, or I am my circumstances, or I am the beliefs that the world tells me about me. And so then I create this perspective of separateness, and in those moments, the totality, the divine, is hiding itself from me. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the deeper nature of existence. And then there's moments of illumination, moments of realization, whether it's in practice or nature or in a situation or insight or however it shows up, that there's these moments of realizing, oh, wait, it is bigger. Oh, I'm not just this. I'm not just these forms that are expressing, or that the divine is expressing through. And so this illusion of separateness starts to dissolve in different ways and at different times. The idea of Maya, which, a lot of people say that, oh, well, all of expression is Maya, the whole world is Maya. And in my study with, non-dualism and dualism, I found that it makes sense, but it's important to understand how the terms are used. And this is according to the teachers that I've studied with. But to say that the world is an illusion doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that this body doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that the sun and everything, all the forms don't exist. But the illusion is of separateness. The appearance of the world, the way that we see the world, is an illusion. The way that we see it is inaccurate. It has the appearance of being composed of innumerable separate forms, but that's not actually true. They're all the same substance. They're all the same thing, but it just appears to be separate. And this journey of practice then, or really the journey of the human experience, according to the teachings, is that it's all a journey back to the self. It's all a journey back to the one. It's all a journey back into remembering from our state of forgetting, or from our habit of forgetting. And what moves us along this process is desire. There's a teaching that says desire is the force that moves the entire universe. And and Derik had spoken to this, and whether it's biological desire, like to eat or drink, or sleep, or whatever it is, there's also egoic desires. So in terms of me and my personality and my experience of separateness, what do I desire from other people or from the world, or that I want to create or contribute, or and then there's also the level of, we could say, spiritual desires, which really speak to this deeper alignment to the harmonious unfolding of the creation. This idea of dharma, that there are I am a unique expression with the role of bringing something unique into the expression while I'm here. That's the nature of it. And there's a teaching on the 4 desires, and I'll just kind of mention it briefly as a way to sort of point us, or kind of round out the picture to a degree. In terms of how we move through the world, It's said that the soul, or there are spiritual desires, that there's 4 primary desires that move the universe, that move this individual expression through it on the way back home, on the way back to the remembrance, on the way back to the realization of the deeper reality or the deeper truth. And one is Dharma, that I'm here to fulfill a specific role in this great symphony, in this great dance. Another is artha, or the means to be able to do it. What are the resources, the connections, the sense of security and stability that I need so that I can dedicate time to making this contribution to the big picture, or to the world, or to creation. And then there's the idea of kama, which is pleasure. And this is all the forms of pleasure that, going back to that Byron Katie quote where she said something to the effect of, when we see beauty, we're seeing clearly. The idea that this is meant to be a joyful expression. Why it's not, if you go back to, which day was it, the first day, the second day? If we go back, then we can look at, it's not joyful because of our confusion. It's not joyful because of our sense of separation, because of our limited understanding, just to put it in short. But that it's meant to be joyful, that we're meant to love this experience. It's meant to be an expression ultimately of love, of the totality, not in this confusion of disjointed parts, but this perpetual awakening to oneness, or the big picture. And it's said that all the desires that we have ultimately take us toward the 4th, which is moksha. The desire to be free of the illusion, not free of the world, not free of this body, but free of our confusion, free from our misperception, our misunderstanding of what's really taking place and where I fit into that, and my role in that. That all desires are ultimately taking us back to the realization of this deeper truth, even though they might not look like it in the circumstantial. That desire that propels us forward is the desire to ultimately know ourselves, or to know ourself, or to know the self. And so how that happens is that in each moment, we could say our actions, our choices, our perspective, our beliefs, our understanding will either take us and steer our desires into actions that take us away from the truth, or take us toward the truth. One of what's become one of my favorite words in yoga is the term brahmacharya. One of my teachers broke it down, and if you break the word down, charya means to move, and Brahman is the absolute reality. So the idea that brahmacharya is one who is dedicated to aligning their movements to absolute reality, to the absolute truth, to the awakening of this universal knowledge. And that we become more and more conscious of, what am I doing day to day, moment to moment? What are my habits? What are my distractions? What's my level of practice or commitment or devotion? Is it taking me toward truth, or is it taking me away from truth? Is it keeping me in the illusion, or in my confusion, or in my forgetfulness, or in the hiding that I'm not seeing the deeper reality? And so there's this awakening to the fact that in every moment I'm moving either toward or away from truth. And so this whole story of creation is woven into the body. We're an embodied expression of all these forces, as well as the process of awakening to them. And Tantra is a methodical process for us to connect to them, to activate them, and to use them as a vehicle of transcendence and also embodiment, transcending the confusion, but not leaving the not leaving the material reality, but embodying it from a place of knowing, where it becomes joyful, where it becomes a dance, where it becomes reverent, where it is sacred, where it is this constant celebration and recognition of beauty. And one of the mechanisms, that Derik opened our session with today was mantra. And of course, we've used it in some of our previous sessions. Mantra is one of the ways, of course, there's lots of different techniques that we've been using, but this is one of the ways that we can really orient the mind into awakening to this deeper truth and this deeper reality. We spend a lot of time in contemporary Western yoga practice on postural alignment, which is important, but sometimes it's even to the point that we negate or leave out the importance of mental posture, that our mind must also be aligning to what our actions are pointing to, that we want this integration, this cohesion of movement forward. And mantra is one way that we create mental posture, one way that create mental alignment. The idea, and Derik spoke a little bit to this, Sanskrit is said to be composed of words that don't point to a thing. Like we have a word for car, and that word just points to, oh, we all agree car means that object, that thing. But where Sanskrit is said that the terms themselves embody the very vibration of the thing that they represent. So it's not just some random sound we're making out of our mouth, or invoking in our mind that points to something, but that it's said to hold the very essence of that thing, that it is the essence of that thing, held in the vibration of the sound itself. And so mantra is a way that we're using certain syllables, certain terms to align the mind to the very thing that we're pointing it to. And it's said that the mind, and of course we know that whatever our mind focuses on, it starts to become the expression of, it starts to embody, right? So if I think a lot of happy thoughts, my mind will start to have this sense of internal happiness. If I have a lot of depressed thoughts, the same thing happens. And when we use mantra, it's a way that we're invoking the very vibration of the thing that we're orienting to, so that the mind can start to take the form of that vibration from whatever level of dysfunction, confusion, distractedness, fragmentation that it's in, into this cohesive state of embodying the very thing that it's invoking, so to speak. And sometimes mantra is used more verbally. Sometimes it's used more as a mechanism of concentration. It can be helpful as a mechanism of concentration, but the idea that is that that would be step one, you could say, that would then take us further into invoking and adopting or embodying the very vibration upon which we're meditating. And so often, I'm going through this pretty quickly, but so often mantra could start as a verbal external sound, and then as it becomes more internalized, it would be a silent mantra that we would be repeating in our mind. The mind becomes more seduced by this vibration or lured into this vibration until eventually we could take it into a point where now we're just giving our attention to silence and feeling the nature of that vibration arise spontaneously out of the silence. Because the mantras aren't things that the mind made up. Oh, let's make up car so that I can connect to this experience of car. But that the mantras are actually the vibrations of the creation itself to which we're aligning, so that we can move into this deeper sense of integration, knowingness, and embodiment and alignment with these subtle fundamental forces. I'll make one more point because this might show up in practice today. We also use something called bhav. Bhav is an intention. I spoke to it in our Thursday session when we were working with creating this bhav around Agni, or this fire in the body. Bhav may not always be Sanskrit mantras, but it's another way of creating mental posture, where we're pointing the mind to a particular idea and becoming open and receptive to embody or become an embodiment of that idea, to awaken to these deeper truths that we haven't been seeing. And we might use even English words to do it, kind of like the idea of positive thinking, you could say. But again, it's about alignment, not just, oh, I want that, but can I invoke the very essence of that state, the very essence of this truth, the very essence of this teaching, so that I become an expression or embodiment of it, so that I am it, as opposed to I am trying to invoke it or become it. That there's this merging to a point that the deeper truth now becomes known in me. All right, I'll stop there. So we can transition, and Derik's going to share some words.
Let us begin with the experiential practice, embodiment of the principles of divinity and sacred process of life and evolution as described by Jeremy. If you haven't already, please establish a seat, comfortable seat. Close your eyes and connect with your breathing. The simplest ways that we can begin to internalize our attention. Within the Tantra system, Om is indicated as A, U, and M, three distinct sounds. We can access A sound within the pelvic region, U within the torso, and within the head, skull cavity, the natural ascent of the sound. We'll count a total of 6 times. First to emphasize A, next to U in the torso, and the last 2 in the skull cavity. Again, emphasize each particular letter as we ascend. Into your breath. Breathe fully through the nose. Exhale through the mouth, cleansing the palate. Breathe in fully once again. Emphasize the U. M. Rest into the 4th sound, which is the ensuing silence. And then please come transition onto your back. Shove a corpse-like posture. Perhaps you Continue to hear that reverberation, silence on the back end of Om. In our practice today, we'll also weave in the grace of Gayatri mantra. Practice that in parts. So as you inhale, I'll say the sound, and then as you exhale, you'll repeat after me. So start with a quick trial here. Reach the arms up and overhead on inhalation. Reach out through your legs in opposition. And then exhale, lower your arms back down along the side of the hips. And here we'll just go right into it and layer the mantra. I'll say it as you inhale and you'll repeat on the exhalation. Om Bhura Bhuvaha Swaha. And then on the exhalation, Om Bhura Bhuvaha Swaha. Inhale, I'll repeat, I'll say, Tat Savitur Varenyam. Your turn. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasyan Dhimahi. Argo Devasyan Dhimahi. Again overhead. Yo Yonam Ranchodaya. Yo Yonam Ranchodaya. We'll do one more round. Om Bhuram Bhuva Swaha. Om Bhuram Bhuva Swaha. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Tat Savitur Varenyam. Argo Devasyan Dhimahi. Argo Devasyan Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yo Maham Pranchodaya. Dhiyo Yo Maham Pranchodaya. Pause and listen. Let's transition by drawing your knees into your chest and tuck the chin, draw the forehead towards the knees on the exhalation. Exhale, coil, something like a pill bud. And then inhale, straighten the legs straight up towards the ceiling as you take your arms up and overhead. Exhale, coil again. Tuck the chin, concentrate in the pit of the navel, and expand with the in-breath. Let's do that 2 more times. Exhale, coil, and even pause slightly at the bottom of the out-breath, awareness deep in the navel. Expand with the inhalation. Exhale, coil once again. Pause. Expand with the in-breath. Final round. This time we'll coil, pause in the coil-like position. Not only place your mind in the space behind the navel, but place your breath. There's a natural compression of the body in that region, and then we insert the breath into that region, and we set the mind into a region, awakening the particular quality or resonant intelligence of that place. And let's expand into our letter L type position. So feet up to the ceiling, arms up overhead. Pause here. Perhaps army crawl your shoulder blades a little further away from your hips to create more traction in your spine. Weight of the legs anchor down all the way into the sacrum, establishing kind of foundation there. Then temper the navel back even as you inhale to ignite that presence, create that presence in the navel plexus. Lisa, I think you need to mute there. And continue to breathe. Place our attention in the breath, in the navel. And exhale, come down. So lower the arms, pigeon toe the feet, press the knees into one another. And remain present to that kind of released space within the abdomen. So in a most basic sense, the process of life is really a dance of polarity. And then the yoga is to hold both of those polarities simultaneously from a neutral and allowing place. The polarity of contraction, the polarity of space, held within yoga. These lift up your hips and take them to the right about 6 inches-ish. There you go. Straighten your left leg on the ground. Then take your right leg up to the ceiling. Fan your arms out to the side, letter T. And lower your right leg about 25% of the way across the body. Exhale, drop. And then inhale, come back up. And repeat, this time lower at 50%. Exhale, come across. Again, the whole program is held in the navel. Inhale, come on up. And 75% this time. Deeper, a little further, tethering the entire posture, breath and mind in the navel plexus, and then come up with the in-breath. This time we'll come over for just 50%. So we'll pause halfway over. Establish relationship with the posture. The best sort of relationship that you would hope for. One of presence and attentive listening, and willingness. And come up vertical with the right leg. And this time we'll come all the way across, lower the right leg, quote, 100% down to the ground. If you need to bend the knee to modify this posture, you can. Some of you may even be able to catch your outer right leg, right foot, or ankle or shin. Left toes drop. They're about 9 o'clock at this point. And maintain activity in your left leg. So fan the toes up. With an inhalation, breathe from your heart down into the pelvic floor, and then exhale from the pelvic floor to the diaphragm. Transition up to vertical. Lower the leg, exhale, moment of recognition, and then set up for the second side. Hips to the left, right leg straight, left foot up to the ceiling. 25%, lower to your right. Inhale up vertical. And 50%, come over. Vertical, and breathe in. And halfway, pause. Again, hold the posture in the navel, and we can create more space for a more deliberate quality by dropping the left femur bone, left hip down the direction of your right leg. So you free up a little more space in your left waist. Haul the sacrum along as you do that. Sacrum rolls something like a boulder towards your right leg, right foot. Inhale up vertical. Next we'll come into the entire posture. So lower left leg off to the right, and perhaps you can catch hold of the foot. Again, we'll intersect through the navel plexus by breathing down from our heart into the pelvic floor. The inhalation, and exhale from the pelvic floor to the diaphragm on the out breath. 5 to 8 more breaths like that. Let's come up neutral. And place both feet on the floor, feet wide towards the edges of your mat. Pigeon toe the feet, brace the knees into the midline. This is just simply what I call the resting position. You can place the arms in a number of positions, including bringing your fingertips to the diaphragm. Gives you a little more tactile feedback on your breathing. Wherever the arms may be, you rest into a sense of allowance, as opposed to urgency. Let's come through your right side up into a standing position. Come up vertical. Tadasana, arms alongside the body. Hands alongside the hips. Establish the central axis, so the line that runs from your inner ankles up the inseam of the leg, pierces the pelvic floor, up the diaphragm, your throat diaphragm, upper palate diaphragm, crown of the head diaphragm. And raise the arms up and overhead. So inhale, and as you do so, stretch more length through the interior of the body, more length to the spine. And exhale, lower the arms back down. Plug the feet firmly into the earth as a kind of tether or foundation, and then lift up that inseam once again, all the way up to the crown. Inner body stretches long, and then lower the arms down. So the movement of the arms is the most distal or peripheral aspect of what we're really doing here. Continue 2 more. Again, harness that interior length and exhale, the same axis in which Om ascended itself. This time, pause, the arms up overhead, feet firmly planted into the earth, toes fan open. And again, draw up the mid-seam of the body, so inner ankles, all the way up to the inner thighs, pelvic floor. Temper the navel back to direct the prana more completely up through the spine, diaphragm, throat diaphragm, upper palate diaphragm, and sahasrara or crown diaphragm. Release the arms with an exhalation. Maintain connected to the central axis. Place your hands on the backs of the thighs, so the hamstrings. And in a moment, we'll run the hands down the backs of the legs, something like going down a railroad track. Exhale, go forward, slide the hands down the backs of the legs, kind of lovingly. And inhale, come up halfway again, slide the hands up the back of the legs here. And fold over, exhale. Come up the backs of the legs. This time bring the hands up a little higher, so north of the backs of your knees. There we go. And we'll overlap with Gayatri. So take it as you inhale here. I'll say the first line. You'll exhale. You'll say the first line. So inhalation. Om Buru Bhuvaha Swaha. Exhale the same sound. Oh, as you fold. Om Buru Bhuvaha Swaha. And once again, inhale, come up halfway. Jeremy, you're already there. Tat Savitur Varinyam. And then you would fold. Tat Savitur Varinyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. You're in the halfway position. Argo fold Devasya Dhimahi. Come up halfway. Yo Yonam Pranchodaya. Yo Yonam Prachodaya. Repeat this one more. Om Bhum Bhuvaha Swaha. Om Bhum Bhuvaha Swaha. Tat Savitur Varinyam. Tat Savitur Varinyam. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yonam Pranchodaya. Dhiyo Yonam Pranchodaya. Simply pause, listen to the mantra silently. Please bend your knees, bring your hands to your hips, then push the floor away as you return to vertical standing. And come into neutral Tadasana. And step your right leg back in preparation to open up into triangle pose. Reach your arms open, breathe in. Straighten the front leg. And exhale into Trikonasana. Drop your right hand on the right hip. So first come into triangle, and the right arm is alongside the right body. There you go. Inhale, reach your right arm up like something like a rainbow. Inhale, arc all the way across overhead, so end to end, pot of gold. And then lower the right arm back down to the hip. Inhale, arm overhead. And exhale, lower the arm back down. Two more, breathe in. And even pause for a moment of breath retention. And then lower the arm back down, breathe out. Final round, pause with the arm across the body. Moment of retention. Now keep the arm across. So we'll pause in the final posture, breathe steadily. Lower the arm down, breathe out, and come up with an inhalation. Turn the feet the second direction. Set up for the second side. Reach into the earth, establish your foundation, and then exhale. Tip from the hips, tip into the posture. Left hand to the left hip, and arc like a rainbow. Inhale, take the arm across the body. First two are just warming up here, and then exhale, lower the arm down. Again, breathe in. Exhale, lower down. Two more. This time, moment of breath retention. Even apply a slight Chandarbhan. Direct energy into the heart. And then lower the arm down. Breathe out. Last one. Inhale, come across. Moment of retention. Keep the arm across the body and breathe steadily, naturally in Trikonasana. Turn the navel, heart up towards the ceiling as opposed to sagging into gravity. Exhale, lower the arm down and pull yourself up with the in-breath. Well done. Right, let's pivot to your right closed hip pose. We're setting up for revolve triangle. So I guess, Jeremy, if you turn to the left, that would give people the best model. Good. If you happen to have a block, place it on the inside of what would be your right foot. Reach the right arm up overhead. There you go. Good job. Inhale up overhead, and then exhale, lengthen into a forward fold. Place the hand on the floor or the block. If you care to, take the left arm up towards the ceiling, or simply keep that palm on the sacrum for greater stability. In any case, twist in the posture, and once again, from your heart, breathe down into the pelvic floor on the inhalation. And exhale from pelvic floor to heart on the exhalation, tempering the navel back on the out-breath. Do this for a total of 5-ish breaths. Approximately 3 more to go. Heart to pelvic floor diaphragm, again, drawing the navel back, awakening the plexus. Final breath. Look down with an exhalation, and then windmill yourself up to vertical position and swing into the second side. So pivot your feet, yeah, like that windmill action. Good. Left arm tall, breathe in. Prepare yourself, so the entire front body lengthens and lifts, and then bring that length and lift into your forward fold. Exhale. Plant the hand. An option to take the right arm up to the ceiling. If you're wishing for more stability this morning, you can just simply keep the hand on the hip. Establish the physical pose and then transition to the inner pose. The inner pose from heart to pelvic floor, the inhalation, and pelvic floor to diaphragm on the exhalation. In this overlap, abdominal region, attune yourself to a sense of awakened force, the prana. Two more breaths here. And look down with an exhalation. Return back into standing on the in-breath and come into neutral position at the front of your mat. Turn to the central axis. Arms out and overhead. And into forward fold, then the knees as needed. Exhale. Come up halfway, breathe in. And step back through dog. En route to child's pose. Exhale, come into child's. Take your fists, bind them, and place them in the abdomen. So there you go, underside. Try to position them comfortably where it's not too awkward. You can kind of overly press on the diaphragm or something. The idea is to maintain some pressure and presence in the navel. And bring the arms forward. We'll come up on an in-breath. And back into dog, exhale. Walk to the front of your mat, breathe in. Halfway. Hands to the hips, bend the knees, and push up into standing. Step out over your right shoulder, open the feet about legs distance apart, slightly turn the toes in. Set up for second version of revolved triangle here. If you have a block, so both toes point. If you have a block, you might Prasarita Padottanasana. That's a wide foot pose. There you go. Good. If you have a block, you may want to place it outside of your right foot. Halfway in front of the toes, halfway behind. Inhale, open your arms to the side. And then from the navel, initiate the twist in the navel. Exhale, take your left arm outside of your right foot. And return back up. Inhale, come back up into standing. Exhale, come into it again. Reach into the nexus of the movement. Bend the left knee as needed to come in and out of the posture. Last one. Come up. And into the final twist. Breathe out. Now with an inhalation, look down at the floor. Exhale, temper the navel back as you look up at the ceiling. So I know it's a little counterintuitive to exhale as you look up, but 3 more times. Inhale. And the movement of the head is really an entry point into the navel. The last one. And hold the pose. Again, direct the breath from the heart into the pelvic floor, into the diaphragm. Unlike yesterday's practice, where there was deliberately fiery mood to the navel plexus, bring a greater sense of spacious yet very attentive attention. Exhale, look down. And inhale, return to standing. Or what Jeremy called the BOV, right? So the felt mood, intent within the posture, or your mental posture. Open the arms. And we'll come across second side. 3 times in and out. An exhalation, bend the right knee accordingly. 2 more at your own pace. Reference the navel as the fulcrum point on which the entire movement hinges. Establish the final form, and then we'll move in and out, remain in the posture, and move in and out with the head and navel. So inhale, look down at your left toes, or fingers, or toes for that matter. And exhale, twist in the navel, look up to the right. 3 more. Marry your breath with the intimate sense of awakening in the navel plexus. We'll hold the final pose. Inner posture. Breathe from heart to pelvic floor. Exhale from pelvic floor to heart. You can even contract Mulban to accentuate the point. Look down with an exhalation. And return to standing with the in-breath. Let's return to the midline, so step the feet together. This time join your palms. Softly lift the elbows to create more breathing room in your side body, something like opening the gills of the side body. And draw up the inseam central axis of the body. Turn to neutral. Physical neutral, mental neutral, the currency of the breath neutral. And please step your feet about legs distance apart once again. Your hands to the hips, reach up tall. And hinge forward with an exhalation. Place the fingertips, palms on the floor or block, and again come up halfway, breathe in. Fold over with an exhalation. Repeat that and listen as you do so. We'll do the same gesture with Uddiyana Bandha. So fold on your next exhalation, as you fold over, empty all the air out, start to draw the navel back towards the spine, keep the breath out, navel even more towards the spine as you come halfway up. Come onto your fingertips to create even more clearance in the underside of the body. Then release the navel, inhale, and repeat. Exhale, hold. Hold the breath out. Navel to spine, come up halfway on the out held breath. See Jeremy's hollowing out his navel there. Repeat this. Release the bandha, breathe in, and fold over, exhale. Let's do this 2 more times at your own pace. And then pause in the final forward fold. Listen for the atmosphere of assimilation as your internal organs reassimilate themselves, as your nervous system, circulatory systems re-regulate themselves in response to Uddiyana Bandha. Up halfway, breathe in, and transition into dog pose. And as you start to exhale, contract in the pelvic floor. Maintain that contraction through 2/3 of the in-breath. You're breathing in, the pelvic floor is held, and then release it towards the tail end of the exhalation. Then exhale, start to bear down once again, pelvic floor. As you breathe in, maintain the grip of the pelvic floor. Top third of the in-breath, release it. Do this about 3 more times. Please come down into child's pose. Rest into a sense of neutral and inherently safe space. as though you're being nourished from within. Come up to all fours. And exhale back into dog pose, or rather, um, sit back into child's pose, exhale. Back to all fours on the in-breath. Dog pose, exhale. Inhale to your knees. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha. Repeat, exhale into child's pose. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha. Back to all fours. Tatsaviturvarenyam. Back into dog. Tatsaviturvarenyam. All fours. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. All fours. Dhiyo Yonam Prachodaya. Dog. Dhiyo Yonam Prachodaya. Pause and dog, simply listen. Please transition into Dandasana, or staff pose. The legs are straight out in front of you, spine vertical. Plug your fingertips into the earth. Turn the legs on. Lift up tall through the spine, gently tucking the chin. Again, maximize the length of the spine by taking the sacrum in and up, creating more buoyancy, fullness, lift in the rib cage. That's it. The whole experience becomes more concentrated. Okay. Now from here, we'll twist. So keep the legs turned on and bring your left hand to the outside of your right knee. Now this could be the simplest version of the posture. As you, if you have more range of motion, you would reach more and more towards your right leg, even hooking the left elbow on the outside of the right leg. It's up to you. You're somewhere in that spectrum. Okay. That's it. Good. Now turn your torso up towards the ceiling, so away from the floor, twist up towards it, and bring your right fingertips next to your ear. Bend the elbow. With an inhalation, we'll turn even more powerfully up towards the ceiling as we straighten the right arm. And exhale, bend the elbow, draw it back. Create stability in the navel. Inhale, open. Moment of in-breath retention, and then exhale, bring the arm back. Two more like that. Connect in with Jalandhar on that moment of retention. And straighten the arm one more time. We'll pause in the final pose. And find the twist. You can see Jeremy lowered his right hand to the outside of the left foot. That's another way of using your arms for greater leverage for the twist. Not everyone has that range of motion, so find your appropriate ground. All right, thank you. Exhale, look down, and we'll come up with an inhalation. Neutral space. Then twist to the second side. And the left elbow, fingertips next to the ear. And inhale, straighten the arm, bring more energy into the posture. The first one was just a little giveaway. And then exhale, bend the elbow back. Next three, moment of retention, tuck the chin. Now pause in the final version of the posture. Whether that means keeping your left arm straight or making that monumental leap to grabbing your right foot. In any case, twist. From the navel, twist from the heart, perhaps even your gaze up towards the ceiling. Something like an inflatable castle. Inhale, return to seated. Cross the legs, come into a meditative seat. So in a moment, we'll take Kapalabhati. And as you do so, the sense within it is clearing the inner and the outer space. Not just within as the air strikes the interior of the forehead, eyebrow center. Clear the inner space, outer space. Complete. And simply recognize, rest into mental clearing. And we'll transition into what looks like Janu Shirsasana. So start by straightening your left leg. This is the point where if you have a blanket or something, you may, it's important that your spine is straight for this next sequence. So a blanket supports that. Okay. So Jeremy, kind of 3/4 out a bit to your right. Other way, to your right. Yeah. Take to your right foot out to the right a bit more. So there's a 3/4 angle. There you go. Good. All right. I'll talk Jeremy through this first one. It's Mahamudra or variation. Notice it's not called an asana. It's a mudra. Please reach your arms up overhead. And breathe in. Come into a forward fold. This next piece is just priming it. So inhale halfway. Maximize the length of the spine. See how the spine is just essentially straight? That's important. So hold the breath for 1 or 2 beats and then exhale into the forward fold here again. And then we'll repeat that 3 to 4 more times. So inhale, come up, no, just keep your hand on the foot. So we're doing kind of a mild in and out. Exhale, fold. Inhale up halfway, all 3 locks. Throat lock, pelvic floor lifts, navel back, build the energy inside. And then as you exhale, experience that energy expand within the confines of your skin. So exhale, fold. And the energy circulates itself inside. The prana circulates itself. So do that a total of 4 times. So you, the listener, go ahead and come up vertical so you can model this first part, Jeremy. Lift the arms up overhead, breathe in. Lengthen through your spine, the arms come into a forward fold. First one's just a giveaway, we'll practice. So inhale, come up halfway, straighten your arms, straighten your spine, no breath retention at this point, and then exhale into the forward fold. Good. Let's repeat. Inhale, go halfway up. Now this time, tuck your chin, maximum length in the spine, lift the pelvic floor, hold the breath in, navel back, roughly 5 count here, and then exhale into a forward fold, breathe out. Do this 3 more times, increasingly internalize your awareness, particularly on the breath retention. Apply all 3 locks. Just about a 4 or 5 count breath retention. Final 2. Last one. And this time, simply pause in the forward fold. Again, internalized awareness. Rest into a sense of allowance and recognition. Reach your arms, inhale, return to vertical. And as you release the arms, change the legs. Even before we enter the mudra, just become like prepare yourself. Mental preparation. Reach your arms up overhead and lengthen into the forward fold. Exhale. Catch hold of the foot. Lengthen up halfway. Breathe in. First one's a giveaway. And exhale, fold. Now we'll do the mudra 4 times. So back out. All 3 locks. Internalized awareness. 4 or 5 count, and then exhale, hold. 3 more. Now simply rest in the forward fold. Come out with an inhalation. And cross your legs in a meditative seat. Internalize your attention within the central axis. And please transition onto your back, set up for dynamic bridge. Come into bridge. So inhale, lift the hips up to the ceiling, arms up overhead. And lower down with the exhalation. And we'll return to Gayatri in synchronization with the movement. So as you inhale, vocalize the mantra as you return back down. Tatsaviturvarenyam Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasyam Dhimahi Bhargo Devasyam Dhimahi Yo Yonam Prantodaya Yo Yonam Prantodaya. Pause. So in your current position, they listen to the next posture. We'll go in Viparit Karni Mudra, so another mudra. You'll need some wall space to do this, and if for some reason you don't have wall space, you can do either 3/4 shoulder stand, I believe Jeremy took us through at one point, or rest in this position right here. So Jeremy, if you could transition legs up the wall pose, Viparit Karni Mudra, maybe against the glass door there, or okay. So he's go ahead and demonstrate 3/4 shoulder stand just as another option. Ideally, you can come into legs up the wall pose. You see how he has a shoulder stand with a kink in it, essentially. The weight of his legs and hips travel down the forearms and the elbows into the floor, minimizing weight on the neck. Yeah, so go ahead and come onto that. And then the legs up the wall pose. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. Against the glass door, I mean, you know, if you have another place in mind, that'll be fine. And if you have a blanket of sorts, you can put underneath the hips. That helps quite a bit, but not required. Yeah, so you see how, go ahead and pause there, Jeremy, how you got in. So his side is against the wall, like that. He's looking away, 90-degree angle with the wall. Good. And then he'll drop to his right shoulder and roll the legs up towards the ceiling, like that. And you do this business of kind of inching around, crawling your way into comfortable position. And take the arm, you place the arms where they're comfortable. I like to take them overhead, like a little bit of a diamond shape. It opens the diaphragm a bit, but again, wherever you're comfortable. Most important part is that you're at ease, fully at rest. Viparit Karni is, again, mudra, is the oasis in many ways. A welcome salve or balm in the landscape of so much breath modification, any sort of intensity that came up in your nervous system. Its nature is one of healing renewal. I'll layer one more piece in here in our Viparit Karni in conjunction with the mantra. So mentally, as you inhale, you'll intone the first line. And as you exhale, the second line. Inhale, third line. Exhale, fourth line. I'll walk us through a few rounds, beginning with the exhalation. As you inhale mentally, Om Swaha. Exhale. Tat Saviturvarenyam. In. Argo Devasya Dhimahi. Out. Yo Yonam Prantodaya. Om Swaha. Tat Saviturvarenyam. Ango Devasya Dhimahi. Yo Yonam Prantodaya. Continue. One of the inherent qualities within the mantra is light or luminosity, more specifically, removing of darkness. You find within the mantra itself is reference to the solar spirit, Savitur, is another name for the sun. As you release the mental sound, simply rest into the light. Here we'll transition through your side directly into child's pose. You place the forehead on the floor in triangle. Tuck your chin enough so it's really the hairline that rests on the floor, and the skin of the forehead is drawn down towards the eyebrows as opposed to lifted up. And in so doing, invite the frontal lobe of the brain to soften. Inviting the forward lobe to soften, we invite thought to soften. And come up vertical and onto your back with feet on the floor. Draw the right knee into the chest. And bring some sort of pulsation of contraction and straightening. So, in other words, the leg moves away from the body slightly, the arms straighten, and then exhale, draw it back into your chest. Repeat. Repeat the same thing on the second side. One, and pause with the feet on the floor for just a moment, then draw both knees into the chest. And finally, prepare for Shavasana. Please bring your attention to the crown of your head. And there, connect with the sense of heavenly bodies or light. Celestial firmament. Now, as you inhale, start to draw that light through the crown in headspace, and then exhale, deposit it there. Continue in this manner, gradually drawing the breath, the light further down, deeper into the body. So next exhalation would be in the throat, through. Release that light into the top chest and shoulders. Continue to make your way further and further down through the body, filling it with light. Continue. And once you reach the soles of your feet, rest into that inner field of light that fills each and every crevice, every cell, the inner body. Here we'll transition towards a seated position. Inhabit the body, and when you're ready, come through your side. Up into a final seat. Establish the posture. The head, neck, and spine are straight. Tune to your breath within the inner sanctum of the nasal passages. Experience the flow of breath as two separate streams riding up and down the upper ceiling or roof of the nasal passage. Begin to direct the breath up into the space between the eyebrows and exhale, deposit it there. Breath is drawn up through the stream of the nasal passages, the upper ceiling. And exhale, seated in the eyebrow center, awakening that region. Do so without effort, overly trying. Relax and continue to gently watch and direct the flow of breath. You may even sense or perceive or even see the breath as light, as presence and light. And gradually, this presence and light continues to build within the skull cavity. Becomes more and more expansive, filling the brain with light and presence. This light makes the form very bright, golden, almond-shaped flame in the middle of the brain. Sense it, feel it, perhaps even see this flame surrounded by a kind of aura or glow. Sense that this light or flame is a source, or rather the source, of boundless energy, power, one that is inherently healing and inspiring. Slowly begin to allow the flame to move at its own organic, natural pace from the brain down the center of your spine. As it descends, notice any resistance you may be experiencing, keeping awareness on the flame or directing it through the center of your spine. Take your time. Sense the flame moving itself down your spine. Feel the inherent intelligence of the flame, guiding it to descend through the spine at the perfect pace. As it does so, feel it energizing, nurturing, and renewing the core of who you are. It reaches the space behind the navel. See it stop and become established there. Relax and allow your awareness to cultivate the image or feeling of the flame. Sense it becoming more and more robust, kind of living, vibrant presence in your abdomen. This flame is the source of boundless inspiration and energy. As you feel and see it, sense that you're connecting to the force that has been behind all your moments of inspiration in life. Found inspiration, the very nature of this life. Hence this light, the flame, growing larger and larger. Begins to expand, fill the entire abdomen. And sense its light infusing you with ultimate positivity and healing. Now now silently and slowly repeat the following words to yourself. In me, there is a light that lights the whole world. It radiates truth, boundless will, action, and knowledge. Take your time. Be aware of how your body, mind, and soul resonate with these words. In me, there is a light that lights the whole world. It radiates truth, boundless will, action, and knowledge. Each time you say it to yourself, know that you're the embodiment of its sublime meaning. Me, there's light, lights the whole world. It radiates truth, boundless will, action, and knowledge. Are these words nourishing you, connecting you to your true nature, helping you unlock boundless capacity? Continue to meditate. Friends, if you would please join your palms. Doing our voices and chanting Om, and I'll close with a prayer for peace. If you happen to know the words, you're welcome to join along. Otherwise, just feel the resonance wash over you. Om. Om Shanti. Prithvi Shantirapa Shantiroshadhaya Shanti. Anaspataya Shantir Vishvedeva Shantir Amma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Om Shanti Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Ready to do so, you tuck your chin, release your hands, and very gently, mindfully open the eyes and lift the face. Meditation is now complete.